Hi everyone, here is an answer key for the Trig Lesson 4 homework, which was assigned on Monday, April 27th. Okay, here we go. So number 1, for each of the following, find all the missing sides and angles. Okay. And so I think it's easiest to find angle C first because we have this 90 degrees and this 73 degrees. And you know that angles in a triangle have to add to 180 degrees. So angle C is equal to 180 degrees minus 90 degrees minus the 73 degrees. So angle C is equal to 180 minus 90 minus 73. And we get 17 degrees. Okay, so this angle is 17 degrees. And it was perhaps not best to put that right there. So I'm actually going to move that. Okay, and we'll say that angle C is equal to 180 degrees minus 90 degrees minus 73 degrees, and that gave us 17 degrees. Okay, and then we have to find this missing side here, AB, which we'll call that X, and we have to find AC, which is Y. Okay, and you can either use the 17-degree angle that you got or the 73. I'm going to use the 73 and say that this side right across from the 73 is the opposite. Across from the 90 is always the hypotenuse, so this side is adjacent or beside the 73. And let's get the hypotenuse first. Doesn't matter. You could get the adjacent first. You have to use the opposite, and we're trying to get the hypotenuse. So we'll do SOHCAHTOA. Okay. We have the opposite. We're looking for the hypotenuse, so that's sine. So I would go sine of 73 degrees is equal to opposite divided by hypotenuse, and then solve this for y. Y is equal to 12 divided by sine 73 degrees. And so we get y equals 12 divided by sine 73. And I'll just double check I was in degree mode. Good, so 12.5 centimeters. Okay, and then we have that opposite side, which is an exact 12 centimeters. And now let's get the adjacent. So we're going to use the opposite and try to get the adjacent. Opposite and adjacent comes from tan, so I would go tan of 73 degrees is equal to the opposite is 12, the adjacent is x. And remember, these guys switch when it's this type of equation. So it will be 12 divided by tan 73, and so x is equal to 12 divided by tan 73, and we get 3.7. Okay, so we got 17 degrees, 12.5, and 3.7. Let's go check the answer key really quick. There we go, 17 degrees, 3.7, and 12.5. Okay, let's try letter B. This time we have two sides and only one angle. And remember, across from the 90 degrees, we could call that C, and we could call this A and this B and use Pythagoras to get the missing side. So A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And so we would have A squared plus 15 squared equals 17 squared. So A squared plus, pretty sure 15 squared is 225. And I think 17 squared is 289. Subtract the 225 from both sides. And we will get A squared equals, looks to me like 64. Yep. So A is equal to plus or minus the square root of 64. So A is equal to plus or minus 8. We would reject the negative because it's a side length, so A equals 8 meters. Okay. Now, let's get angle X, and we'll use the sides that they give us. Right across here, this one is the opposite, and across from the 90 is the hypotenuse. So we're going to use opposite and hypotenuse, which comes from sine. So we would go sine of X is equal to opposite divided by hypotenuse. And remember, to get an angle, you have to do sine inverse of the ratio. So I'm going to go second function sine 15 over 17, and we get 62 degrees. Let me just check down here if they're doing degrees to the nearest degree. Yes. Angle X is 62 degrees. Okay, and so now that we have that, that's 62 degrees. To get angle Z, we can do angle sum of triangle equals 180. So 180 degrees minus the 90 degrees box. This is 90 degrees minus 62. And we will get angle Z is equal to 180 minus 90 minus 62, 28 degrees. Okay, which is consistent with the answer key. All right, let's do letter C. So we've got two angles and a side. So we can get angle D pretty easily. 180 degrees minus 90 degrees minus 19, which I believe is 71 degrees. Okay, so let's use this angle. The side right across from it is the opposite, so we're looking for that. Let's call it X. Across from the 90 is the hypotenuse. So again, we're doing opposite and hypotenuse, which comes from sine. So sine of 19 degrees is equal to, the opposite is X. The hypotenuse is 10. And to get X by itself, you multiply both sides by 10. So it's 10 times sine 19. .3. And that is going to be millimeters. All right, let's also find this side. We'll call it Y. If X is opposite to 19, and of course the 10 is the hypotenuse, this must be adjacent. And so we're going to find the adjacent, and we have the hypotenuse. Adjacent and hypotenuse. Ka, that comes from cos. So cos of 19 degrees equals, the adjacent is y, the hypotenuse is 10. So y is equal to 10 times cos 19. And we get 9.5. Alright, and letter D, we've got one angle and two sides, and across from the 90 is the hypotenuse, which we could call it C right now. So we have that missing side. We have to find angle U and angle V. Okay, so first of all, let's do Pythagoras to get the missing side. C squared equals A squared plus B squared. So C squared is equal to 9 squared plus 12 squared. So C squared is equal to 9 squared plus 12 squared, which is 225. And so C is equal to plus or minus the square root of 225. So C is plus or minus, I think it's 15, yep. And since it's a side length, we would just say C is 15 millimeters. Alright, and we found this. Okay, now let's get the angles. And we'll use the sides that they gave to us. So let's try to get angle U, and let's label the triangle based on angle U. So straight across from angle U is the opposite side, and we know across from the 90 is the hypotenuse. So this must be adjacent. And so we are looking, we have opposite and we have adjacent, and that is the tan ratio. So I would go tan of angle U is equal to 12 over 9. So angle U is tan inverse of 12 over 9. So I go shift tan, 12 over 9, bang, 53 degrees. Okay, and to get angle V, we will simply go that angle V is equal to 180 degrees minus the 90 degree box, and then minus 53. 180 minus 90 minus 53, bang, 37 degrees. Okay, and that is consistent with the answer key. Alright, so let's get down to number 2 here. The vertical distance between floors at a department store is 10 meters, as shown in the diagram. An escalator that has an angle of inclination of 26 degrees connects the two floors. How long is the escalator? So we are looking for this length here. Across from the 26th is the opposite. Across from the 90 is the hypotenuse. So we have the opposite. We're looking for hypotenuse. Opposite and hypotenuse comes from sine. So sine of 26 degrees is equal to opposite 10 divided by hypotenuse y. And those guys end up switching. Y equals 10 divided by sine 26, which is 22.8. And that's going to be meters. Okay, and part B, how long has the customer traveled horizontally when they've gone from the first floor to the second floor? So the horizontal distance that you would travel is this x along here. That's how far you would travel horizontally. That is the side that is adjacent to 26. And so we've got the opposite side as an exact figure 10, and we're looking for the adjacent, so we would use tan. Tan of 26 equals opposite divided by adjacent, and those switch. So x is equal to 10 divided by tan 26. 10 divided by tan 26, which is 20.5. Okay, 20.5 meters, and that is consistent with the answer key as well. Okay, number 3, on a straight 120 meter section of a ski slope, the angle of depression is 15 degrees. What horizontal distance does the ski run cover? Okay, so here's what they're saying. On a straight 120 meter section of a ski slope goes down diagonally like this. So there's the ski slope. Okay, they're saying that this is 120 meters. And they're saying the angle of depression is 15 degrees. So remember, the angle of depression is the one that comes down from the horizontal. So this is 15 degrees. And you know how from the dotted line all the way to that vertical line is 90 degrees? So we have to go 90 minus 15 to get the angle inside the triangle. And so that would be 75 degrees. Okay, so this is the angle we'll end up using. Here's our 90 degrees. And it says, what horizontal distance does the ski run cover? So the horizontal distance is right here, x. Okay, so using the 75 degrees, this is going to be the opposite side, and across from the 90 is the hypotenuse. So we're looking for the opposite, and we have the hypotenuse, and that's the sine ratio. So you would go sine of 75 degrees is equal to opposite divided by hypotenuse. And then multiply both sides by 120 to get x by itself. Okay, so x is equal to 120 times sine 75. And we get 115.9. That is going to be meters. Okay, and part B. What vertical distance does the ski run cover? So the vertical distance is right here, y. And that, if we use the 75 degrees, we've got opposite across here, hypotenuse across from the 90, so this is the adjacent. So we're looking for the adjacent, and why don't we use the hypotenuse that they gave us, because that was an exact 120 figure. So adjacent over hypotenuse, adjacent and hypotenuse comes from cos. So cos 75 degrees equals, the adjacent is y, the hypotenuse is 120, and then multiply both sides by 120. To get y by itself. Y is equal to 120 times cos 75, which is 31.1. Okay, and so what is the slope of the ski run? Here's the situation that we had, right? This is 31.1. The horizontal distance was 115.9. And remember the definition of slope. Slope is rise over run. And our rise is actually negative because when you go down a ski slope, you're going down like this. So our rise is actually negative 31.1, and the run is the distance you travel horizontally. So this is the rise, and this is the run. So we would go negative 31.1 divided by 115.9, okay, which is negative 0.27. Okay, and so you can see that my rounding is slightly off from the answer key. The answer key is 0.28, and they don't put it as negative, but we'd have to understand that that slope is downwards. I'm guessing they didn't put it as negative because we're talking about lengths in meters. Okay, so we could leave it as positive, but then just understand that the 0.28 is a slope down. Okay. Okay, just to see maybe how they're getting the 0.28, the exact value of the 31.1 is the 120 cos 75, and we're dividing that by the 115.9, which came from 120 sine 75. Okay, so nope, that's actually more accurate the other way. Okay, so really the answer key should be more around 0.27. Okay, or 0.27 down if you want to use the positive value. All right, and finally number 4. At a point 28 meters from a building, the angle of elevation to the top of the building is 65 degrees. The observer's eyes are 1.5 meters above the ground. How tall is the building? Okay. So what we have to do, guys, is we have to figure out this length from the person's eyes up to the top of the building. Let's call that y. And then at the very end, we're going to have to add on this 1.5 meters. Okay, because we're just getting the length from the person's eyes to the top, and that's not all the way down to the ground. So we have to add on the 1.5. Okay, so let's figure out y first, and if we've got this 65-degree angle, that is the opposite side, and this is 28 still, and we know that across from the 90 is the hypotenuse, so the 28 is the adjacent. So we have the adjacent, and we are looking for the opposite side. Opposite and adjacent comes from tan. So tan of 65 degrees equals the opposite is y. The adjacent is 28. Multiply both sides by 28. And we get y equals 28 tan 65, which is 60.0 meters. And then we can say, therefore, the height of the building is the whole thing, from the top all the way to the ground. Let's call that h. H is equal to the 60.0 meters plus that extra 1.5 meters at the bottom. So 61.5 meters. Okay, and that's it. So there's an answer key again for you guys. That is for Trigonometry Lesson 4, which was assigned on Monday, April 27th. And I will send you a new lesson on next Monday.